130 congressional Democrats are urging the Supreme Court to side with trans athletes in a high-stakes legal battle over men and women's sports. The case concerns two trans athletes, one from West Virginia and one from Idaho, who successfully challenged state laws banning biological males from girls' sports. Many high-profile Democrats have endorsed a brief sent to the Supreme Court on the matter. Adam Schiff, AOC, Nancy Pelosi, and Ilhan Omar are just a few notable names. Also, though, absent from the brief, their signatures not there, are Senator Chuck Schumer, John Fetterman. Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono's team, however, is defending the Democrat proposal, releasing this statement. A categorical ban on transgender students participating in sports not only harms these students, but also subjects women and girls to harassment and discrimination. These bans are blatant discrimination, and the court should say so. To the rest of the country, most Americans widely oppose allowing trans athletes to compete in women's sports. This poll, just from January, shows nearly 80% of Americans, a majority of Democrats, believing that women's sports only belong to women. Now, listen to this. This was interesting. Even residents of deep blue California are against the idea. 65% of Californians, with 71% of public school parents supporting President Trump's executive order banning biological males from women's sports. Arthel, I was surprised to see, even in California, those kinds of numbers. I mean, I've seen the polling 80, 90% of Americans don't want biological men in women's sports, but even in California.
I'm not surprised. So listen, transgender students have a right to participate, be a part of, they deserve to be a part of the school community, right? They should not be bullied, they should not be ostracized, they should not be made fun of. But if you are born male, you have a physical advantage over girls who are born girls. And I don't think it's fair to the girls. So I don't think that biological males should play in girls' sports. And so again, I'm not surprised. It's just unfair.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, Harris, to that end, I mean, AOC, Ilhan Omar, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi from California must have not looked at the polling in their state, or they don't care about it.
Oh, I don't think they care. I think that they are morally right on this issue, and that's where they want to stand on it. I don't think they're considering the young girl athletes who go up against what Arthel is talking about, and that is someone who is physically stronger and faster in all the categories compared with women, which is why how we've gotten to this point in our history with us not sharing genders in sports. I mean, you think everybody who went previously, it's again, that permanence of history. It was fine for however many years, decades and decades, but now hinging on politics and a narrative that some want to run, they want to change it. I would say this, though. I am surprised that Democrats have not gotten more creative in this end. Like, why not come up with some sort of answers to this issue? Why not meet in the middle somehow? You saw Gavin Newsom trying to tack to do this before he decided not to. And so you already could guess that there were people in his state who didn't agree with the far left, more woke, if you will, to borrow that phrase, transgender ideas on men and women's sports. I do think that they can get creative on this. Maybe there's a separate but equal type of situation. I'm not sure. Maybe a third. But having raised a former gymnast, I didn't want boys on the floor with her. She could get hurt.
And interestingly, Emily, this was fascinating. So this is part of the Supreme Court case. This was one of the lawyers that's arguing in the case, Save Women's Sports Legal Defense. They noted this, and it caught my eye. One brief explained how the plaintiff in the West Virginia case beat 423 different girls 1,100 times, taking 57 medals that rightly belong to women. That is simply not fair.
It is not fair. And it's also obvious that there is a physiological benefit, an advantage that that biological male has over women. This, to me, underscores that this amicus curiae brief, like, they're not attorneys, guys. It's basically advocates, self-proclaimed advocates, trying to weigh in on a matter that's way over their heads. And I know that some of them have JD degrees, but it's obvious that they're not looking at this as an attorney. And the reality is that the Title IX, first of all, it protects biological sex. It doesn't protect gender identity. And secondly, as you know, under the Equal Protection Clause, distinctions of gender are permissible when in justified circumstances. We've seen that in the Supreme Court. We saw that in the Virginia case where physiological differences were underscored and highlighted. And the broader point is, under the Equal Protection Clause, you need to ensure and that you highlight these distinctions and differences, because that's how it enables you to protect those that need protection. The blanket categorization, the blanket rules here do not work. And the law appreciates that nuance, certainly in this conversation. And then the irony, too, is that allowing men in the sports, these biological males, it creates sex-based harm. That is exactly what Title IX forbids. So all of their arguments are about the gender identities that people put on like a coat, while totally ignoring those that are born with a certain sex that have no control over that, no change. That's them on the inside, that they are the ones getting harmed by this.
You can't change the chromosomes.
No. And unfortunately, those minds are the ones drafting the laws, which is why the courts have to step in and say, not anymore.
Benjamin, I do find it interesting. I mean, you've got 80% of America sending a pretty clear message. And then you've got 130 congressional Democrats saying we're going to send the opposite message. And then the voices on the other side are few and far between. Fetterman's name isn't on it. Chuck Schumer, I was actually surprised to not see his name on this. Gavin Newsom, one of the few Democrats who's spoken out about this, and James Carville told me last week, my party should stay away from these issues. We're on stronger footing on, let's say, economic issues.
Yeah, and what is amazing is that after the election in 2024, we really thought that the Democrats would realize that they should come more to the center, that they should change these policies, which most of the country disagreed with. And they're not doing that. And they are aligning themselves more with activists than they are with female athletes. And I think that's crazy. And Title IX was about protecting female athletes. It was about protecting them, not erasing them. And I think that's something that effectively this would lead to. And one of the great dangers is if this Supreme Court did go through with this, it would affect so many other issues. It would affect locker rooms. It would affect, women's placement in a whole variety of different places. So this is, if it does... Scholarships. A whole lot of other issues. And so, no, this is something that has to end, but it's just surprising to see that the Democrats still feel it's going to lead to a political victory in some way. It won't.
Yeah, best of luck to those 130 Democrats.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.